Hey everyone, welcome back to Unlocking the Future. Before we start, did you know 65% of our content consumers aren't following us on social media? If you enjoy the show and want to support us, please hit that subscribe or follow button and collect our episodes on pods.media. We promise to keep improving the show for you every week. Your support means a lot. Thanks, guys. All right, so today we're going deep on real-world assets on the blockchain. You know, I used to think blockchain was all about Bitcoin and like weird monkey JPEGs, but this is something else entirely. We're talking about like things you can actually hold in your hand.
Yeah.
You know, houses, art, even like that bottle of wine you've been saving, all being brought into the digital world.
Yeah, it's a huge shift. For centuries, investing in these kinds of assets has been limited to a select few, but with blockchain, we're talking about democratizing access, opening up opportunities that were previously out of reach for most people.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but like, let's break this down. What exactly are real-world assets, or RWAs? I mean, how do you even turn a physical thing into something that exists on the blockchain?
Well, think of it as creating a digital representation of a real-world asset. So let's say you own a piece of prime real estate. Tokenizing that property is kind of like dividing it into digital shares, each represented by a unique token on the blockchain. And then these tokens can be bought, sold, or traded, just like stocks.
So instead of needing like $1 million to invest in a property, you could buy a fraction of it, represented by a token, for, say, $100. That's pretty mind-blowing when you think about the possibilities.
Exactly. And it's not just about making things more affordable. Tokenization also solves some major headaches with traditional assets. Think about how long it takes to sell a house, for example.
Yeah.
The paperwork, the fees, all the middlemen.
No, don't remind me. My friend just went through that whole process and it was a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. With RWAs on the blockchain, you cut out a lot of that friction. Transactions are faster, more transparent, and often cheaper because you're eliminating those intermediaries. And because ownership is recorded on a public ledger, you have a clear and immutable record of who owns what.
Okay, so that's efficiency and transparency, huge pluses. But I'm also thinking about the security aspect. We hear all these stories about hacks and scams in the crypto world. So how do we know these tokenized assets are actually safe?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. Security is paramount, and it's an area where developers are constantly innovating. For example, many platforms use what are called multi-signature wallets. So that requires multiple parties to approve any transaction involving these high-value tokens. It adds an extra layer of protection against unauthorized access.
So it's like having a digital vault with multiple locks.
That's a good analogy. And remember, the blockchain itself is inherently secure. Transactions are cryptographically secured and verified by a decentralized network of computers, making it incredibly difficult for hackers to tamper with the system.
Okay, that's reassuring. But beyond the technical aspects, what are the real-world implications of this shift? I mean, how is tokenization already being used to make a difference?
Well, let's dive into some examples. RealT is a great one. They're tokenizing rental properties, allowing anyone to become a real estate investor with as little as £1. It's fractional ownership, made accessible, breaking down those traditional barriers to entry.
Oh yeah, I was reading about that. They allocated a huge chunk of their own tokens, like 86.5% of their 500 million RWA tokens, to their community. That's a serious commitment to decentralization, right?
Absolutely. It puts the power in the hands of the people, not big institutions. And it's not just about making money, it's about giving people a stake in their communities, allowing them to invest in the places they live and care about.
Okay, so RealT is shaking things up in the real estate world. What about other areas? What else is being tokenized right now?
Well, there's PAX Gold. They've brought gold, a traditional safe haven asset, into the digital age by creating a token backed by physical gold reserves. It's a way to own gold without having to store those bulky bars yourself.
So it's like having digital gold you can trade instantly from anywhere in the world.
Precisely. It combines the stability of gold with the flexibility and accessibility of blockchain technology. And then there are projects like Clearpool and PropChain. They're bridging the gap between real estate and decentralized finance, or DeFi. They're exploring ways to use tokenized property as collateral for loans on the blockchain. So imagine getting a loan backed by your apartment, all managed transparently on a decentralized platform.
Oh, that's taking things to a whole new level. It's like we're building a parallel financial system, one that's more efficient, transparent, and accessible.
Exactly. And it's not just about loans. We're seeing the emergence of new financial products and services built around tokenized RWAs. It's a rapidly evolving space with endless possibilities.
Okay, my brain is officially exploding with all these possibilities. We've got RealT democratizing real estate, PAX Gold making gold more accessible, and Clearpool and PropChain weaving real estate into the world of DeFi. I'm dying to hear more about other projects pushing the boundaries in this space.
Well, hold on to your hat because we've only just scratched the surface.
Okay, I'm ready for more. But before we get into specific examples, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What are some of the challenges facing wider adoption of RWAs on the blockchain? I mean, if this is so revolutionary, why isn't everyone doing it already?
That's a great question. It's important to acknowledge that this is still a relatively new field. There are hurdles to overcome. Regulation is a big one. Governments around the world are still figuring out how to classify and regulate these tokenized assets. It's like a complex landscape that can slow down innovation.
So it's a bit like the Wild West out there, with everyone trying to figure out the rules of the game.
In some ways, yes. But that's also part of what makes it so exciting. We're witnessing the birth of a new industry, and it's going to take time for the legal and regulatory frameworks to catch up. But progress is being made, and as more institutional players enter the space, we can expect to see more clarity and standardization.
Okay, so regulation is one hurdle. What else is holding back the adoption of RWAs?
Well, there's the question of market acceptance. Not everyone is comfortable with the idea of digital ownership, especially when it comes to something as tangible as a house or a piece of art. It takes time for people to understand the technology and trust the system.
It's like any new technology, right?
Right?
People were hesitant about online banking at first, and now it's the norm.
Exactly. Education is key. As more people become aware of the benefits of RWAs, the transparency, the efficiency, the accessibility, we can expect to see greater adoption.
All right, so regulation and market acceptance are two big challenges. What else should we be thinking about?
Well, there's the question of valuation. How do you accurately determine the value of a tokenized asset? It's a complex issue, especially when you're dealing with something like art, where value is often subjective.
Right, like a Van Gogh is worth millions, but how do you translate that into the digital world, especially when you're talking about fractional ownership?
That's a key challenge. And it's an area where we're seeing a lot of innovation. Some platforms use sophisticated algorithms and market data to assess value, while others rely on expert appraisals or even community-based valuation mechanisms. It's a dynamic field, and we're still figuring out the best approaches.
It's not as simple as just slapping a price tag on a token. There's a lot of nuance and complexity involved, but despite these challenges, it feels like we're on the cusp of something truly transformative.
Absolutely. The potential of RWAs on the blockchain is immense. And even with these challenges, we're seeing incredible progress and innovation.
Okay, I'm officially hooked. We've covered a lot of ground already, but I'm eager to dive into specific examples and see how this technology is being applied across different industries. Let's take a quick break here.
Okay.
We're open for partnerships. Got a cool project? We've got the spotlight you need. We're opening our doors to a limited number of newsletters and podcast sponsorships, offering an exclusive opportunity to promote your brand and connect with our passionate audience. Check out the link in our newsletter or hit us up across all socials. We got this.
All right. Sounds good to me. All right, let's get back into those exciting projects. You mentioned wanting to hear about how different industries are using this technology, so where should we start?
Honestly, I'm fascinated by the idea of bringing fine art onto the blockchain. Imagine owning a tiny piece of a masterpiece.
You're in luck, because that's exactly what platforms like Masterworks are doing. They're fractionalizing ownership of blue chip art. So allowing people to buy shares of paintings by artists like, Banksy or Picasso.
That's amazing. I've always loved art, but the price tags at those galleries are intimidating, to say the least.
Yeah.
So this makes it way more accessible.
Exactly. And because it's on the blockchain, it's more transparent than the traditional art market. So you can see the provenance of the artwork, like who's owned it in the past, and even track its value over time.
So no more shady backroom deals or questions about authenticity.
That's the goal. And it's not just about making art ownership more accessible. Platforms like Masterworks are also exploring ways to use these tokenized artworks as collateral for loans. It's creating entirely new financial opportunities, both for artists and investors.
Wow, I can see how this could really revolutionize the art world. But let's shift gears a bit. What about something a little closer to home? I'm thinking about small businesses. How could they benefit from tokenizing real-world assets?
That's a fantastic question. Imagine a local bakery wanting to expand. So instead of going to a bank for a loan, they could issue tokens representing shares of their business. And this allows their loyal customers and community members to invest directly and share in the bakery's success.
Like crowdfunding on steroids, right? And it gives people a real stake in their community.
Exactly. And because it's all tracked on the blockchain, everything is transparent. Investors can see exactly how their funds are being used, and the bakery can build stronger relationships with its supporters.
Okay, I'm getting the sense that the possibilities here are truly endless. We've got real estate, gold, fine art, small businesses. Like, what else is out there?
Well, there's a lot of buzz around tokenizing intellectual property. Imagine a musician being able to issue tokens representing, like, royalties from their music. Fans could invest directly in their favorite artists and share in their success.
That's a game changer for the music industry. No more relying on record labels or streaming platforms that, like, take a huge cut.
Exactly. And it could apply to other forms of intellectual property, too, like patents or trademarks. It could democratize access to innovation and create new funding models for creators.
Okay, I'm officially mind blown. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We talk about all these exciting possibilities, but what are some of the, like, ethical considerations surrounding real-world assets on the blockchain? I mean, it sounds like this technology could really disrupt traditional power structures.
That's a crucial point. We need to be mindful of the potential social and economic implications of this technology. So, for example, if real estate becomes more accessible through, fractional ownership, could it drive up prices and make housing even less affordable for some? We need to ensure that these innovations don't exacerbate existing inequalities.
So it's about more than just the technology itself. It's about how we use it and who benefits from it.
Absolutely. And there are questions about data privacy and security. If we're putting real-world assets on the blockchain, how do we protect sensitive information? How do we prevent misuse or manipulation of this data? These are complex issues that require careful consideration, as this technology evolves.
Right. We need to make sure we're not just creating a new set of problems as we solve old ones. It sounds like this technology has the potential to be incredibly disruptive.
Yeah.
Both in positive and potentially negative ways.
That's the nature of any transformative technology. It's up to us to shape its development and ensure that it serves humanity in a positive way. And that brings us to another important point: the role of governance in this space.
Governance? You mean like who sets the rules and makes sure things are fair?
Exactly. With traditional assets, you have, government regulations and legal frameworks. But in the decentralized world of blockchain, governance is often more complex. How do we ensure accountability and transparency when we're dealing with decentralized organizations and autonomous systems?
That's a tricky one. It's almost like we need to invent entirely new ways of governing these digital ecosystems.
In a way, yes. We're in uncharted territory, and it's going to require collaboration between, technologists, policymakers, and communities to create frameworks that promote fairness, security, and sustainability.
Okay, so we've got a lot to think about here. The world of real-world assets on the blockchain is full of potential, but also fraught with challenges. We've talked about regulation, market acceptance, valuation, ethics, and governance. I feel like my head is spinning with all this information.
It's a lot to digest, for sure. But remember, this is a journey of exploration and discovery. We're all learning together as we navigate this exciting new frontier.
Well said. And I have a feeling this conversation is far from over. What do you say we take another quick break and come back to explore some real-world examples of RWAs in action? Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want to give a massive shout-out to our partners at PAX.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
Yeah, the masterminds behind some seriously awesome free marketing tools for, you guessed it, on-chain creators.
Definitely check them out.
Yeah, go check them out on Farcaster and X. I'm dying to see how this technology is being used to create, like, tangible solutions and make a real difference in the world.
Absolutely. Let's dive into some case studies and see how these ideas are being put into practice.
All right, let's jump right back into it. We've talked a lot about the potential of real-world assets on the blockchain, but I'm ready for, I'm ready to see this stuff in action. What are some real-world projects that are really kind of pushing the boundaries and making a difference?
Well, there's EstateX. It's a platform that's aiming to revolutionize global real estate investment. They're fractionalizing ownership of properties around the world, allowing anyone to invest in a piece of London, Dubai, New York City with a relatively small budget.
So I could potentially own a tiny sliver of a skyscraper in Tokyo, or a villa on the Italian coast.
Exactly. It's breaking down geographical barriers to real estate investment, opening up opportunities that were previously only accessible to, like, the super wealthy. And because it's all managed on the blockchain, transactions are faster, cheaper, and more transparent than traditional real estate deals.
That's incredible. Okay, so we've got EstateX democratizing global real estate. What else is, like, catching your eye in this space?
Well, there's dVIN Labs, a platform that's bringing the world of fine wine onto the Solana blockchain. So they're tokenizing individual bottles of wine, creating a digital marketplace where collectors and investors can buy, sell, and trade these rare and valuable assets.
See, I've always wanted to get into wine collecting, but it seems so intimidating and expensive. This could really change the game for wine enthusiasts like me.
Absolutely. And they've got some really innovative features, like their Seller Challenge, where users can earn rewards by showcasing their digital wine collections. They're also building a community around wine education and appreciation.
Okay, so they're not just tokenizing wine, they're creating a whole ecosystem around it. That's really impressive. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The challenges. We've touched on regulation and market acceptance, but are there any other potential downsides to consider?
Well, one of the biggest criticisms of blockchain technology is its energy consumption. Some blockchain networks, like, Bitcoin, use a lot of energy to process transactions.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Isn't that a problem, especially when we're talking about sustainability
Yeah.
and the environmental impact?
Yeah, it's a valid concern, and it's something that developers are actively addressing. Many newer blockchains like Solana are designed to be much more energy efficient, and there are ongoing efforts to develop more sustainable consensus mechanisms that require less energy to secure the network.
So it's not a black and white issue. There are trade-offs to consider, and it's about finding the right balance between innovation and sustainability.
Exactly. And we need to be mindful of the potential for market manipulation or fraud. As with any new market, there's always the risk of bad actors trying to exploit vulnerability.
Right. We can't forget that there are always risks involved, especially when dealing with, emerging technologies.
Absolutely. Due diligence is essential. Investors need to carefully research any platform or project before investing their hard-earned money. It's about understanding the technology, assessing the risks, and making informed decisions.
So we need to approach this space with a healthy dose of skepticism and a critical eye. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's about long-term value and responsible innovation.
Well said. And I think that's a great note to end on. Real-world assets on the blockchain represent a paradigm shift in how we think about ownership, value, and the future of finance. It's an exciting space with immense potential, but it's important to proceed with caution, stay informed, and ask critical questions along the way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Feels like we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. And I, for one, am eager to see how this all unfolds. Thanks for taking us on this incredible deep dive.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep unlocking the future.
Until next time.